All right. Well, the United Nations says that we should decriminalize all sex and drug-related activity in the name of human rights. This includes sex with minors, and they want you to be able to poop on the street. Is that what we consider progress for human rights? What about your right not to live in a place where we traffic minors and poop on the streets?
Can I move to that place?
It is not your right, apparently, to live in a place like that.
Minus trafficking the minors, I wouldn't mind not having to look for a bathroom all the time when I really got to go, just out driving around.
So,
pull over and
I think you can poop in the woods. Do that. I don't care. It's good for the soil biome.
But just don't do it right in front of the 7-Eleven when I'm going in to get a Slurpee at 11 o'clock.
But do you want to live in a place where people poop on the streets regularly where you need to walk?
No. I don't want people leaving their dog poop on the streets. Pick that up too.
Exactly.
Michael Schellenberger makes this great argument in his book, San Francisco, and I'm going to talk about this more later, but that Harvey Milk really became famous not because he was the first openly gay mayor, and, openly gay was not a big deal in San Francisco during the age of Harvey Milk, but his big platform was that San Francisco residents need to pick up their dog poop on the street. This was a big problem. No dog poop on the street, and he was able to really make this a big platform and become famous because of it. And then also he was flamboyant and openly gay. But, now we've come full circle that sort of the corruption inside of San Francisco is such that people do pick up their dog poop and also allow human poop.
They're pick up after their dogs while they're going number 2.
Well, I don't think the same people are doing
While I'm down here, I'll just relieve myself, but I'll pick up after you, Grover.
But there's a tolerance for human poop and an intolerance now for dog poop. So let's go through what the United Nations is saying about these human rights. And, what they're trying to say is that if you criminalize things like sex and drugs, it's racist and it's against human rights. It violates people's human rights. Okay, that's a nice thought that we don't want to criminalize people for things that maybe shouldn't be criminalized. But we're going so far in the other direction now that there is no longer a consensual age, an age of consent for minors is what they're saying. So, whatever, 4-year-old, do it. And there is no way to criminalize. I don't know if there's another word for this. I didn't go too far down looking it up, but do we still call them pimps? People who make money from selling other people's sex?
I mean, you just did.
Is there a more forward word for using?
Is there
pimps?
a new, like a Biden administration approved?
I think it's entrepreneur
word?
now.
Entrepreneur.
I know.
I was going to suggest
public schools.
Yeah. I was going to suggest unconventional entrepreneurship.
Okay.
Unconventional entrepreneurship, yes.
Okay by everyone if I use pimp? Yeah?
Yeah, I'm fine with that.
Me.
I'm
Okay.
I'm down with that.
Is there any YouTube terms of service against talking about pimps?
I don't know.
Okay, I'm not going to tell you how to do it.
Not yet.
The United Nations thinks it's A-okay that you do it, so I'm going to assume that YouTube thinks so too. Okay, this all comes from the United Nations organization called UNAIDS. It was a report that was released on March 8th, Women Day. Here's the cover of the report, and it's sort of a best practices suggestions for international communities on how to police or not police conduct associated with sex, reproduction, HIV, drug use, homelessness, and poverty. Also, of course, there's some gender identity thrown in there for good measure. Here are the frameworks that they say that they're talking about. They want to basically talk about, these things: sexual reproductive health, consensual sex, gender identity, gender expression, HIV non-disclosure, drug use, and homelessness and poverty. Now, it's a very strange document. And I'm going to skip straight to the most strange thing. The most disturbing is Principle 16 around consensual sexual conduct. They're saying that pretty much no consensual sexual conduct should be criminalized. It's same sex as well as different sex relations, consensual sexual relations between trans or non-binary people, all kinds of combinations, premarital, extramarital, no criminalization of sex, period. With respect to the enforcement of criminal law, any prescribed minimum age of consensual sex must be applied in a non-discriminatory manner, meaning we sort of take into account that persons under 18 can make decisions about engaging in consensual sexual conduct and their right to be heard. There is no age limit here when you read through this. So, I can see how maybe you don't want to send someone to prison for life for having sex with a 17-year-old when they're 19. Okay, but 7? 12? 4? Right. No age at all?
If they can decide their gender and to be on puberty blockers and stuff like that at that age, then why not? These decisions that these kids are going to be able to make are going to keep expanding to, like, they want to get married now all of a sudden. They want to live with somebody. Like, it's just further going to expand.
Well, they want to go into debt. They want, give a 4-year-old a credit card. That's sure.
Well,
Let's do all of that.
You and I were talking about this. You and I were talking about this story in the kitchen, and Miles, our 12-year-old, said, "Daddy, what's a minor? Like, what is a minor?" And I said, it's you until you become an adult at age 18. Until then, I'm king, she's queen, and you do what we tell you to do. Right? And I said, so we rule the roost until you're an adult, then we kick you out. And he said, what if I don't want to leave? I'm like, I don't want you to leave either, buddy. But you know what I mean? Like, once you go at 18, you're an adult legally under the law. Like, we know that that's when you can serve. That's when you can serve in the military. That's when you can go to war.
That's when you can vote. In Europe, that's when you can drink. Even though we know the process of demyelination, I think is what it's called, is the process of full maturity of the brain doesn't end until 30. But I guess the United Nations thinks that we should take into account the consensual conduct of minors, that they can decide and they can say for themselves. So I can see how 17 and 18 is something that could be considered. But now they're saying decriminalize completely all age groups. I don't think I should have to make an argument why that's problematic.
Well, and that's what the LGBTQIA plus stands for. There's actually maps now, which are minor attracted people, and they even have their own flag.
Yes.
Which just blows me away.
Yes. Yeah, but they're definitely not generally accepted in the LGBTQ community. That's them pushing themselves in there where they're not generally, there's no reason to think they will be.
Right. These groups, LGB and the TQIA plus have diverging platforms. And we've been making this argument for a really long time. But they want to make the argument that that gay is queer, and queer is then something you can apply to all manners of deviance, for lack of a better word. Now, the United Nations says that criminalization of sexual practice is unduly leading to torture, arrest, discrimination, and removal of human rights. In fact, they say by, criminalizing anything really in general is problematic. Here's their introduction saying criminal law is among the harshest of tools that we have, and it ought to be last resort, basically, like criminalizing everything is last resort. It's bad. It's taking away human rights. This document, which I do recommend you read and let me know how you feel about it, the UN is saying that it's important to be free to express whatever sexual act you'd like and not be, criminalized for it. But it is not your right to not have someone express those acts on you. So if you're the victim of a sex crime, too bad for you. Someone else was free to do it. That was their freedom to do it to you. It's not your freedom to not have it done to you.
So this is just going to be like a society full of flashers, right?
Yeah. We're deciding whose rights are more important. The victims of sex crimes? No, not important. The sexual perpetrators, their right to do those things is more important than my right to not be abused sexually.
Like when I was a kid, I was at the Berkshire Mall with my friend Ben.
I don't know where you're going with this, but oh, yes, I do.
And it's an important story. And I've heard this from other boys, my age, who have had similar stories to this. It's happened to a lot of boys that, it's like embarrassing to talk about, but let's talk about it. So my friend Ben and I were at the arcade at the Berkshire Mall in Reading, Pennsylvania, our favorite arcade. And we were out in the food court area and going to the bathroom. And this guy, and we're like, I don't know, young. So we're like, you listen to authority figures. I thought he was a security guard. I didn't know what he was. he's like, come over here, guys. And I don't know what he was doing. He waved us to the bathroom. And then he wanted to like try to show us stuff, if you know what I mean. And we both were like, let's get out of here. And we like hightailed it out of there. And we ran out. We did not go back to the arcade. And then we ran and looked for a security guard. And we told them what had happened. And the security guards were like, let's go right now. Like, and they mobilized to like go find this creeper, And I don't know if they ever found the guy, but
well, that was a human rights abuse to him.
Yeah, like apparently I'm not allowed to be offended by that.
No, you're not allowed to not see that. You have to.
Oh, I should have had to stay and watch.
His rights are to do it to you.
Yeah, I mean,
your rights are not to have that not done to you.
I give up in society.
According to the United Nations.
Oh my God.
That should not be criminalized. As it is right now, voyeurism and exhibitionism is illegal in most places.
Oh my God.
The United Nations doesn't think that that's a good thing. Here's something else they advocate is what I want to call the Jeffrey Epstein Clause. The UN says that no one should be arrested, not just for sex work, buying or selling sex work, but also for pimping sex work, because we didn't agree on a different word. So yes, the exchange of sexual services for money or goods, totally fine, whether you're buying or selling. But look at the second paragraph. Criminal law may not proscribe the conduct of third parties who directly or indirectly for receipt of a financial or material benefit under fair conditions. What are fair conditions, first of all, of sex work? Let's put a pin in that. They can't be punished for facilitating, managing, organizing, communicating. Basically, all that stuff's okay. Like, you can pimp out people for money. You benefit from it. So you can see why I'm calling this the Epstein Clause. G-Max and her crew should not have been prosecuted. Her human rights to traffic people are more important than the traffickees. Pimps' rights, I guess. This seems to be part of a growing movement that sex work is work. This is something I've seen a lot online, that people are taking to the internet and calling sex work a good, hard, honest day of work, and calling out anyone who thinks that maybe someone should want something different from themselves. They're calling it like TERF and racist and classist. Like, if you say that sex work is exploitative, you're out of touch because you're classist and elitist for saying those things.
Right.
But think about who is saying this. People who are not sex workers are saying this. Disenfranchised sex slaves in Africa and Asia, they don't take to Twitter and say, it's my right to be trafficked, right? Who's speaking for them? Right now, criminal law is speaking for them. It's supposed to be illegal. The UN is making the case that they shouldn't have those rights. The abusers instead should have rights. The UN also thinks... Go ahead. Yeah, go ahead.
Oh, I was just going to say really quick, that's going to make Bill Gates happy. He's no longer going to have to refer to them as dinners. He can call them what they are. These
dinners with Jeffrey Epstein and his
also,
group.
Can I ask you this? I've seen this people say a lot in the chat. There's a sort of normalizing of like this sex work now, this idea of OnlyFans. Like when we were asking for like a new name for pimps, and a bunch of people said, the new name for pimps is OnlyFans.
Okay.
So maybe there's like a normalization of it, right? That, you can't ban these people. You should absolutely, this is a day's work, a good, honest, hard day's work. And that's what you should do.
To various degrees. It has now become that if you speak out for someone to maybe not want to do sex work, you are out of touch and elitist. And so, yes, there absolutely is this normalization of using up people's bodies as commodities.
Right.
And so, about drug use. The UN thinks that no drug use should be criminal. Here is their bit about that. Not possession, not purchase, not use, not holding any of these kits, not seeking out health services for drug use. Nothing about drug use should be policed. So it is not only your right to do drugs, it is not your right to live in a drug-free place. Meaning if you live in a neighborhood ripped apart by drugs and violence, too bad for you. There should be no law enforcement or government trying to make that not the case. Now, again, I want to refer to Michael Schellenberger's book, San Francisco. He talks about how when you do not criminalize drugs, you end up with a lot of people dying on the street. That's their right. I guess, according to the UN. It's not your right to live in a place where people don't die on the streets of drugs. In fact, in one study, he found that if you do not force people to get clean, but you just give them houses, they do stay in the homes for the duration of the housing experiment. But the twist in this data, and this was done in San Francisco, is that giving people houses did not reduce the rate of deaths because they were allowed to continue to be on drugs. They just were in a house. There were 37 deaths out of the 199 participants in the control group and 33 deaths out of the 224 in the experimental group. And so it was so surprising that people who are not asked to get clean don't get clean and just die in a more comfortable place. They still die. They just maybe die slower, or they die inside instead of outside. Is this the outcome the UN wants, just to let people OD themselves to death as a human right because of body autonomy? And the resulting communities where people live and then have to, be addicted to drugs, well, yeah, they say you should be able to poo and pee on the street because, you've cultivated this drug addiction, possibly sex addiction too, and you should not be criminalized for engaging in life-sustaining economic activities in public places, such as begging and panhandling, vending, hawking, or other, even hawking or other informal commercial activities involving non-contraband items, or engaging in life-sustaining activities in public places like sleeping, eating, preparing food, washing clothes, or it says even urinating and defecating in other public spaces. It sure does seem to me like the UN is in favor of social collapse, does it not?
So that's what I want to ask you here at the end of this, which is, again, when you see a story like this, you're like, oh my God, these progressives, they're ruining everything. They're driving us into the ground. But maybe I ask you this, isn't it part of the plan? Because if you think about what the World Economic Forum wants, they don't want us to work out of the house. They want us to work from home.
Right. This is the theory of why they're doing this on purpose.
Right. Are they doing it on purpose? That's what I'm throwing it out there. Because why? It's scary to leave the house. You want to go down the street in Chicago right now and go get a burger? Watch out for Jesse Smollett. You just walk all the people that are walking down the street right now in Chicago, in San Francisco. Do you want to do that? Because I can work from home. I don't have to commute. I can stay. I can do all of this remotely. I can have everything taken care of for me because it's scary out there. And this is a way to sort of force us more inside.
I suppose. Well, that's
if you, I don't know, Natalie, if when you were in San Francisco, if you drove by the Tenderloin district, but if you drive over in the Tenderloin district in San Francisco, this is pretty much what they have done. They have made drugs legal. They give them paraphernalia. They give them everything they need. And people are just laying on the streets. They're breaking in and stealing stuff. But nobody is doing anything about it. They've removed police power. They've removed all the things that can keep people from doing that. And so there's a reason that they're doing that. And so it obviously has to be what some of these people want. Otherwise, they would be doing something about it.
Yeah, there's a lot of theories about why. What Michael Schellenberger calls the homeless industrial complex, because there is a lot of money, competing money, government money, your money, going around to different competing organizations. And there's law enforcement, and then there's homeless advocates, and they don't work together. And, they are incentivized to not solve this as a problem. Why would the United Nations want this to feed into the homeless industrial complex? Why would they want to dehumanize human bodies to the point that it would be socially acceptable to have consensual sex with a 10-year-old? I don't know. I mean, this feeds into sort of my theories about transhumanism, is just break down the entire human experience in order to that maybe seems like a leap. I don't know. There's so many whys here. Why remove the age of consensual sex? Why, allow people to do drugs to their own detriment, to the detriment of them and the people around them? Why, I think of little old ladies who are living in communities where they've raised their families that are now drug infested and full of crime. And we're like, well, sorry, old lady, we're not going to help you because it's their rights to do these things around you. I don't know. I really don't know. But this is a real document The United Nations really thinks this. I really feel like I'm living in a clown world. Let us know what you think about it in the chat.
It is amazing
I got two questions. Go
ahead.
Go ahead. Sorry.
I was going to say, it's amazing. The most amazing documents of this, the most amazing things that we cover here on the show don't come from like weird out of the world places. They come from the United Nations on their website, or the World Economic Forum on their website. So people can say, oh, this is tinfoil hat stuff or whatever. No. Go read what they've spent months putting together and researching and deciding that this is the publication they were going to put out. And no media will cover this, but we're covering it here. Go ahead, Philip.
I was going to say, I have two questions on this. One is like, I wonder how long it will be until somebody comes out and says, no, this wasn't supposed to be released. This an intern did it. And the other one is just to bring up some of the images again, but why the hell are they decorated with barbed wire?
I was wondering that too.
Who uses barbed wire as like your graphic design choice?
Yeah, look at the beginning of it.
It's so bizarre.
Can you go back to the cover? It's like a sort of, chubbier woman of color with gray hair, and she's locked up for I don't know what this is supposed to represent.
I do. I mean, it's kind of like, she's in shackles, for being like homeless. She doesn't have clothing. She's unkempt, but she's also then wrapped in barbed wire because she can't just poop wherever she wants. So this is the last thing keeping her from her freedom. It's like her ability to wash anywhere where she wants. Maybe that's my theory. Like the barbed wire.
So many questions. Yeah. So many questions.
I have one more question from our chat room on YouTube. One of our chatters asked, so will they cancel To Catch a Predator? Remember the famous show? Was it an NBC show or ABC show?
Yeah, that's racist and classist.
Chris Hansen, yeah. To Catch a Predator.
But they already got canceled.
Oh, did it get canceled already?
No, it's huge on YouTube.
Quite a while back, actually.
Oh, okay.
Well, the old versions of it, but the actual TV show got canceled. I can't remember what there was some big to do about their last episode that they ended up getting canceled. That was years ago.
Yeah, but he does them. He still does them on YouTube, but the TV show is no longer around.
Yeah, now that's a
you're right.
Rights, human rights violation.
Yeah, I mean, by this definition, who do we prosecute then? There's nothing left really to prosecute.
I mean, I feel if you
mass shooters, it's their right to do that, to express their Antifa sentiment.
We'll go after you though if you own a gun. We'll go after you and track you. We'll do that. Who do we arrest?
Gun possession.
Well, that's what I was just talking about that on the.
Pay your taxes.
Yeah, I was just talking about that with the Fed Now system. It's like the Restrict Act. I mean, so in the Restrict Act, they'll be able to know every transaction you make, and if there's something that they don't want you to buy, like we were talking about limiting how much gas you can buy, they don't want you buying these magazines. These magazines hold too many bullets. We don't have to ban it. You just won't be able to buy it.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah, and you won't have cash because we're getting rid of your cash. So
exactly,
we'll be able to track every transaction you make. So how are you going to make this payment? We'll ban crypto, so we'll use our crypto 2.0, which is this new digital currency. Crazy stuff, guys. Thank you so much for watching this segment here at Redacted. We are live every day at 4 p.m. Eastern Time, trying to share the stories that the mainstream media will not cover. You should also come over and join our community of Redacted Rebels over at redacted.inc. That's our private locals community where we can share exclusive content that we simply cannot share here on YouTube. Come over and join the rebellion together right now by going to redacted.inc. We'll see you next time.